All right, welcome. I see some people starting to join us. If you're just joining us, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We love to see where everybody is, where you are across the country, and sometimes even across the world. Right. Hi, Cassandra from the University of Minnesota. Michelle's joining us from Santa Rosa, California. Madeline is from Wisconsin. Nice. Who else do we have? Alexander, he's from Rise Vision. Glad to have some people from our team joining. Donna from New York. Hello, Donna. I've had a case study call with Donna before, and it was fabulous. Oh, we have somebody from the United Arab Emirates. So that is very cool. Oh, Maria is joining from Greece. Nice. Not that everywhere else in the US isn't super exciting, but come on, from Greece and United UAE is pretty exciting. Ryan is joining from Ohio. Natalie is joining from New Jersey. Dawn is here from Nashville. Dan from Illinois. Martha from Iowa. Kevin is joining from Florida. Oh, Karen is also from Florida. Perfect. Oh, Marissa's here. She's also from Rise Vision, joining from New Jersey. A couple people from New Jersey. Very fun. Who else do we have here? Welcome, Barbara. Daryl from Rise Vision is here. That's exciting. Kristen Johnson, thanks for joining. Lori, thank you. Who else do we have? Barbara is from South Carolina. Very cool. Okay, we'll just give everybody one more minute to join. So if you're just joining, feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from. Oh, we have somebody from Stand4Kind here. Alicia from Salt Lake City is here.
Yay.
Nice. Welcome. All right, so far the most exotic places we have are Greece and the UAE. Very cool. Very exciting to be joining from around the world. Melanie is joining from New York City. Very cool. Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, if you're joining, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. If you have any questions or comments during the webinar, you can also drop them in the chat and we will respond to them. And then if you have a Q&A question, you can drop that in the Q&A or in the chat and we'll get to it. So welcome everybody. This is our webinar with Stand4Kind. So I'm Jennifer from Rise Vision and I'm going to turn it over to Candy and Kristen who are going to get us started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Chapman. I'm the project manager with Stand4Kind. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, originally from Rochester, New York. So I saw someone in the chat was from there. So hi. I create content and curriculum for teachers to use with their students. We focus on anti-bullying, spreading kindness, and leadership.
Very well said, Kristen. Hey, everybody. So glad to be here. I'm Candy Olant. I'm training in content development. Echo a lot of the things that Kristen just said. I'm just really happy to be here today. Thanks for having us, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. And I'm Jennifer. I'm from Rise Vision, and we help schools improve communication, increase student involvement, celebrate student achievements, and create a positive school culture. So this is going to be a great session.
So Stand4Kind is a company that I got involved with about a year ago now. My background is in education. I taught in the classroom for about 6 years before accepting this position. So I've been out of the classroom for just a year now. And teaching just made the anti-bullying and the emotional learning and the mental health just so important to me, and it's so close to my heart. So Stand4Kind works with the Utah Department of Education and we host assemblies and adolescent summer camps and community mental health events. And our mission is really to have a focus on anti-bullying and spreading kindness. So it just kind of is where my heart is. We have a Stand4Kind app. We have an ambassador program. We do educator PBIS training and support. So we're just heavily involved in the schools, heavily involved with teachers and support staff, administration, and then also our students.
I would think too, a lot of the people that have joined us today, we're so glad that you're here because you have a passion for kids and mental health. And we're so excited to be able to share our message and just some of the resources that we utilize with students. We were really fortunate to receive a Department of Justice grant in October of 2022 that has really allowed us to extend our reach to schools for anti-bullying and suicide awareness training. And the picture that you see here with Amberly Snyder was actually taken during our summer camp this year, where Amberly came and spoke to students about perseverance, resilience, and grit. So, we do a lot in schools, but we also connect with our ambassadors and students outside of school as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So that really aligns, or Stand4Kind's mission really aligns with Rise Vision. So Rise Vision is the #1 digital signage software for schools in the US and Canada, and we're hoping to take that around the world. As of today, we have over 9,000 organizations and over 3,000 schools who use Rise Vision to improve communication and help create a positive school culture. And like I said before, Rise Vision is really there to help schools improve communication, increase student involvement, celebrate student achievements, and create a positive school culture overall. The smiling faces that you see right here, they're from Saline at Saline, Michigan, or Saline School District. And they've really taken Rise Vision and been able to achieve all of those things through different programs. And so we're just hoping to share that similar message with schools all around the world.
Great. So our agenda today, you can take a look. We know most folks don't like to have slides read directly to them. So we're going to kind of go with a casual conversation, but we'll have the good content up on the screen for you as well. But you can see our topics that we're going to go through today. We hope this will be super interactive.
So if you'd like to drop in the chat today, we're going to be talking quite a bit about anti-bullying because, we're talking about building a culture of kindness in the school. So we're going to start with some anti-bullying and suicide awareness and then move into our grit and resiliency and the power of words and how we leave that legacy of kindness with our students. So if you want to drop in the chat, what do you think is the difference between conflict and bullying?
We'll give everybody a couple of minutes to weigh in.
Yeah, Candy, while they're weighing in, do you just want to go back to the agenda? You didn't switch to that slide. So just so everybody can see what we're talking about today. Perfect. Perfect. So just in the chat, what do you think the difference between conflict and bullying is? There is a difference. I'm sure we're going to hear all about it, but interested to see what other people have to think. I think that now in the way our society is, I think maybe conflict and bullying get a little bit, maybe the line is a little bit blurred or people's perception of it is blurred.
Before I was also an educator for many years. And when I first entered the classroom, I didn't really think about those two in separate buckets. So it was an aha moment for me to really learn through a lot of the training that we did with the kids to learn the difference between conflict and bullying and being able to articulate that to the students.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have a couple of answers. I'm just going to read them before you get started. So Michael said the difference is one direction versus back and forth. Kristen said conflict can be healthy if worked through in a positive way. Bullying is going too far. Bullying is a form of control over another person with more in brackets or less power. Conflict is a disagreement, where bullying is a constant harassment. Conflicts are where people can disagree and all sides are heard. Bullying is where one person exerts power over another and only their view matters. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. And I'll turn it back over to Candy and Kristen.
Yeah, that was great feedback. Okay, so I'll talk about conflict, Kristen, if you want to talk about bullying. But when we think about conflict, it is a normal part of life. And as kids navigate this, it can kind of look like maybe sometimes tattling in your younger kiddos. But, most of the time when conflict arises, friends want to work through it. They want to get past it. They want a resolution. It's an isolated event, usually. It's not something that's ongoing. And it can usually be resolved pretty quickly. And we don't have that major imbalance of power, respect, or kindness that we do with bullying.
Yeah, I saw, or I heard you say, Jennifer, someone in the chat talking about that imbalance of power. And that's so important, really, when you're looking at the difference between the two, because bullying is going to be severe, it's going to be persistent, and it's going to create a threat for another student where they have an intimidating educational experience. And that's really the harm in it. We don't want students to feel that way when they come to school. We obviously want them to feel safe and loved. So bullying, it can be physical, so it can be hitting, kicking, pushing. It can be verbal, so it can be name calling, it can be discrimination, hazing, LGBTQ plus harassment. And so it can look a lot of different ways, which can make it kind of hard to identify.
It's true. And at Stand4Kind, a big part of what our director has pledged to do is to take anti-bullying curriculum into the schools and create ambassador programs and really help those students understand the difference between the two. And if and when they face bullying, how to overcome it, get past it. And that has been a big bonus for the schools that we go into because they've seen a significant reduction in their bullying, reported bullying.
So peer pressure, typically when adults think of peer pressure, we think of the negative kind. So we think of someone pressuring to do something that they shouldn't be doing. What we really want to encourage in our students and we teach them about is positive peer pressure. So we're encouraging students to lift each other up and be positive role models for each other and to use that peer pressure in an uplifting and in a healthy way so that they're encouraging kindness and inclusion instead of negative behaviors that we don't want to see.
Yeah, because that negative peer pressure can definitely turn into a bullying situation. One of the programs that Stand4Kind offers to our upper grade schools is called the LIFT program, Lift Your Fellow Teen. It was created by one of our teammates. And it's really encouraging. It's using positive words of encouragement to help kids who might find themselves in a situation where they're facing an adverse life event or they have been victims of bullying themselves. So the LIFT program has definitely been a really positive thing to take to schools.
And we also have Protect Your Pack for the elementary students, which is a very similar concept. So Stand4Kind's really just trying to push that positive reinforcement in schools, that positive peer pressure, and just teaching them how to navigate some of these situations.
Good point. So this, we used to call this mean girl behavior, but it's really mean person behavior. And it goes right along with the bullying. And it's anytime that you have that, again, that imbalance of power, like what was mentioned in the chat, control, manipulation. Oftentimes we see mean people pressuring people, other students to conform. And if they don't, they risk being ostracized or isolated from their peers. And, cliques, we've heard of cliques for many, many years. And cliques have taken on with social media, um, chat rooms, different things like that, have taken on a whole new realm of how kids are being treated unkindly. And, anytime someone's spreading rumors, things like that, it could be an unkind look that makes someone feel uncomfortable. We see that in the elementary grades. That child will report, oh, they just, they looked at me across the room so mean. Well, it has a significant impact on them because they don't know what that person is thinking. And we see this behavior. Oftentimes children need, or anyone really they need a little extra support with understanding empathy and having empathy for others. Um, we're seeing some of this too with the cyberbullying piece, which has become very prevalent inside and outside of school, unfortunately. We have some examples of what it might sound like to that mean person behavior. Like, seriously, what are you thinking with that outfit? Everyone's talking about how basic you are. So it can be looks, it can be words, it can be actions that these kids are having to deal with.
Yeah, and you'll see throughout our presentation, there's coming up later too. I think it's really important that sounds like piece. We explicitly teach our students that, our elementary students, our middle school, our high schoolers. What does it sound like when it's happening? So that way, when it's happening, it'll just like set off that alarm in their head, like, oh, I know what this is. And then we explicitly teach them how to deal with it. So some of the strategies that we teach them are to ignore it, of course. Does that always work? No, but it may for just starting out. If it's the very first time that this has ever happened, you can ignore it, be the bigger person. So acknowledging the comments and fighting back is typically what a bully or a mean person is kind of going for. They're wanting to get your reaction and see what you do. So if you just ignore it and walk away, sometimes that can fix it and that can solve the problem right there. Also, kind of on the same note, responding with like, oh, that's interesting, or cool, truly fascinating. I can just show that they don't have the power to upset you, like we talked about earlier with that imbalance of power. Not giving them that is so important. Talking to a trusted adult, we like to encourage that, because especially with the little ones, because sometimes they don't even know where to start. And when you talk to a trusted adult, I mean, that could be a teacher, a counselor, a parent, not necessarily having to get them involved, because sometimes they're like, oh, my mom is going to come and handle this situation and embarrass me. And that's not even necessarily what needs to happen. It can just be getting advice, so that they know what to do if they find themselves in that type of situation. Keep your true friends close for comfort. You know who your true friends are. Kids know who their true friends are. So keeping them close is good. And then focusing on the activities and relationships that bring them joy. And really, the main thing that we like to teach is this is not a you thing, it's a them thing. So this mean person behavior, this bullying behavior, it usually comes from a place of low self-esteem. We're gonna have a slide here in a minute talking about why people bully, but it usually isn't a you thing, it's a them thing. So we try to teach them that, so that way they're not really internalizing it as much as they can.
Yeah. So we want to hear from you guys. So we have a chat question. As we move into the next section, what platforms are you seeing a prevalence of cyberbullying? So if you'll drop that in the chat, that would be interesting to see.
Right away, Instagram. Guys, I'm an adult and I had to get off Instagram because it was just too much. I mean, not being cyberbullied, but just, unhealthy comparisons, comparing your life to somebody else's highlight reel. So toxic. Twitter or X, YouTube. That's interesting. We have two
Oh.
responses with Snapchat, which I think makes a lot of sense. I know that Snapchat's super popular with the younger crowd. Actually, no, now that I think about it, YouTube though, like people can get pretty nasty in the comments. I think that's too bad, but
Jennifer, I'll tell you the number one that we're going to show on the next slide really surprised me.
Oh, really?
And I'm a big social media girl. I was there at the introduction of Facebook in 2006 and 2007. I've had my Facebook account since then.
Yeah.
Candy has recently, I hope you don't mind that I share this, Candy. Candy has recently deleted TikTok off her phone because of the same thing that you were just talking about, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to get on there and see people with their like weight loss journeys or whatever. And it was so uplifting and so awesome to see people working so hard and being consistent. And then people would jump in the chat or in the post and say just the awful things to these people. And I don't know, it really bothered me. I was like, delete. I'm not going there anymore.
Oh, yeah, I agree, Candy. Sorry. One very interesting answer that just popped up is the Teams class chat.
Ooh.
That's an upsetting answer for sure. Wow.
Wow. Well,
Right.
it's
Thanks for that, Barbara. Everybody go check your class chats now. All right.
For sure. Well, let's take a look. Cyberbullying, higher risk sites for kids.
I was very surprised that YouTube was as high as it was. I don't know if I just don't read enough YouTube comments. Maybe I'm just oblivious to that. But I was very surprised that YouTube was that high. Snapchat and TikTok and Facebook did not surprise me at all. But YouTube was kind of a shock for me.
You know, you guys know this, but that panorama thing that we lived through, it was reported that people were spending like 20% more time on social media. So naturally, unfortunately, it gave, a platform or multiple platforms for cyberbullying to occur.
Yeah. Going back to the YouTube comment, Sylvia put in the chat, very nasty comments. Some people make their whole career being negative or around negative comments on YouTube. So that's tough. Wow. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there on, having a YouTube channel, having an Instagram channel, having a whatever that you're trying to share, content. So obviously somebody wants to watch what you ate in a day or what you're doing every day, and then to be so mean is terrible. But
it is. You think our kids out there too are young people, young adults even, who are consuming this kind of material. It's just not good for their mental health. You've got kids between 10 and 18. They're not really young adults. The prevalence is on the rise of cyberbullying, like 21% report being cyberbullied between the ages of 10 and 18. So I know we talk a lot about anti-bullying in person, but this cyberbullying piece is something we really have to get in front of.
Yeah, we again explicitly teach our students how to deal with this through our curriculum, but asking the bully to stop blocking, doing nothing, and then talking to their parents about the incident. So you can see how the different teens are trying to take it into their own hands.
I'm just curious if anybody would drop in the chat if they if they have been cyberbullied and how they have dealt with it, or if they have a sibling or a child that has experienced cyberbullying, how have they dealt with it?
Christian dropped in the chat, it's important to teach children that often when they think it's a person saying something unkind online. It's actually just a bot. So there are bots that just drop nasty comments, and we don't need to let a bot or a person, if it is a real person, have that influence over us. So
That's a good
you
point.
could be bullied by the computer now. That's tough. That's tough.
21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah, 21st century problems, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about why teens bully. Kristen, I think you mentioned this one was coming up.
Yeah. Oftentimes we'll get people ask us, or mainly students ask us, well, why would anyone bully? Like, all these horrible things come from it. It's a horrible thing. It's mean. Why would anyone do that? And these are the reasons why. So they're looking for social power. We talked about that imbalance of power earlier. They're trying to fit in. They're trying to control the behavior of their peers. That's that mean person behavior and those cliques. They come from homes where bullying and violence is okay, which is so, so sad, but it is a reality. That's what they've learned from home, and they're unfortunately bringing it into schools, or they've been bullied in the past. So bottom line is that we teach our students, if you are being bullied or someone is unkind to you, it's a them problem, not a you problem, and bullying is never your fault.
I think we have to, that message has to continually be reiterated to young people so that they truly internalize it. So let's look at the mental health effects. We know that definitely bullying of any kind has negative effects on our mental health. Name calling, bullying, harassment, it can really take a toll. And it can be a short term effect, or it can stay with individuals for a very long time. Some of the effects, social isolation, where students stop going to events that they enjoy. They stop going to, or they previously enjoyed, because there is someone or a group of people who are bullying them. Sometimes they internalize it, and it creates feelings of it's my fault. I'm guilty of this. I didn't dress the right way. I didn't have the right brand on, and that's never going to change. Or they said something that was perceived as, silly or stupid, and they feel branded by it. And so they start to lose hope that the situation is ever going to change. Um, it can increase anxiety of things to come. It can create depression. You may see them become irritable. Um, and it can really get severe with insomnia, eating, not eating, or binge eating, trouble concentrating in school or on things that they previously enjoyed. You might see some impulsive behaviors, like fighting was one that we came across in the research. There's an increase in fighting in kids who are feeling bullied, which is very strange. You would think they wouldn't want to lash out, but sometimes they do because they don't know how to self-regulate those emotions. Is there anything you want to add, Kristen?
No, I think you nailed it, girl.
All right, cool.
So talking about how to prepare students to overcome bullying, we teach them leadership skills, promoting kindness and kindness challenges. So we talked about the LIFT and the Protect Your Pack programs that we have. We also have a whole curriculum that goes over leadership skills and grit, resilience, and empathy training. And right now we're working on some curriculum about fostering that sense of school community, because that's just so important. It's probably your best bet against bullying, is fostering that sense of school community. Teaching students long-term mental health consequences, which is what Candy just talked about, and then teaching them the strategies to use against the bullying behavior through school-wide trainings. So we do school-wide assemblies, and then again, that curriculum piece. We also, Candy and I found a really good empathy training, so I can drop a link to that in the chat if there's any teachers or admin here who are just looking for something to use with their students. So I'll put that in there now for you if you want it. It says it's for middle schoolers, but you can really use it for anyone.
That empathy piece is just, it's missing in a lot of situations. Um, why do you guys think that empathy is such a strong weapon against bullying? I'd like to hear some feedback from the crowd. I know that in my own experience, having empathy for others has helped me to build stronger relationships. Um, Understanding where someone's coming from, understanding um, their position helps me to relate with them, I think, as well.
Madeline says, I always think of the walk in their shoes statement. So I think we're all super familiar with that, of putting yourself in somebody else's position and considering it from their side.
Yeah. Perspective. That's having a true
Perspective.
perspective.
Yeah, I think the empathy piece, along with the grit and resilience piece, are kind of more new concepts as far as anti-bullying programs go. So I think there's just so much development and awareness that just still needs to be put out there about that.
Yeah. Because we know that empathy increases tolerance, acceptance. It helps us gain a true perspective, like she said. It is important, and it's one of the reasons we felt strongly about creating the empathy training. Thanks for sharing, everybody. That's great.
So our next piece that kind of stems from the anti-bullying piece is suicide awareness piece. So when we talk about all of those mental health effects that come into play with bullying, you would notice that a lot of them are also mental health effects that may come into play for students to have suicidal ideations. They're very, very similar. So deaths per year, you will see, unfortunately, that this number went up quite a bit between the early 2000s and 2018. It did dip a little bit, decreased by 5% to 2021. However, in 2022, that data was just released in August, and it has gone up to the all-time peak.
Do those numbers surprise anyone?
I think any number is really too bad to see, and an increase is really really heartbreaking.
It's horrible.
When we created this presentation, the data wasn't out yet for 2022. And so it gave a little bit of hope that it was like going down, it's decreased. And then I looked actually yesterday to see if the data was out, and it was released in August, and it was a bummer to see that it had gone up.
So it's important. It's important to talk about it with youth in an appropriate way, so that we can help them to understand who's at risk, what the warning signs are, risk factors, and how to get help. So some of the training that we've created and that our student ambassadors will go through, we talk about the risk factors. And so when we look at some of the groups that are particularly vulnerable to suicidal ideation or completing suicide, the LGBTQ plus community, Native Americans, Alaskan Natives, rural areas, kids living in rural areas, isolation, a feeling of hopelessness often affects them. Obviously, victims of abuse, people with childhood trauma and those who have suffered a loss. And that could be a loss of a family member. It could be a loss of housing, anything that is going to be tremendously disruptive to their day-to-day life could put a youth at risk. And it's also disturbing to realize that the CDC has reported that suicides completed suicides are the second leading cause of death for people 10 to 14. And that was really, really hard to hear.
So warning signs, the thing that I found kind of interesting is if you look through these warning signs, a lot of them are very typical teenage behaviors. So sleep patterns, everything just being very stressful and overwhelming, sloth syndrome, so lack of motivation, mood, heightened irritability, being short with people, lashing out, impulsive choices, like those are classic things that you just see in teenagers. But being aware and explicitly teaching our students, these are warning signs. These are things that you need to be looking for, especially if it's an abrupt change. If they've always been one way and then suddenly something changes, it may seem obvious to us as adults, but in our experience working with children, it isn't always obvious to them. So explicitly teaching them this in order to have students recognize this in their peers or even in themselves is just so important.
Yeah. We'll give them a second to read over.
And Jennifer, they'll have access to these slides, right?
Yep. So after
Okay.
the webinar, we'll be sending out a recording, and we'll also have a link where you can access the recording and the presentation deck. So you can rewatch it, go back to anything you want to look back over, or share it with anybody else.
Good. Mm-hmm. That's great. So additional warning signs, again, just to reiterate, some of these seem like very typical teenage behaviors, but just like Kristen said, if there is an abrupt change and it seems to persist, it's probably time to step in and start asking some questions. If kids are, if they have a plan, if you ask them, do they have a plan? Have they collected the means to complete? Are they often ill? Chronic headaches, stomach issues, sleep patterns are off. Again, eating disturbances, feeling trapped. Really, a lot of people who are interviewed about suicidal ideation who have not completed talk about the lack of hope or the loss of hope. So that it's very strong and it creates this barrier for them to be able to visualize a better future. They don't see it for themselves. Other people can see it for them, but they can't see it for themselves. And when they get to that space, they really, really need someone to step in and help them. They need help. And it's not something that can just shake off. It definitely would need professional help.
So a couple of things that we have found really important when we're working with students and when we're teaching this to students is modeling and role modeling, or role playing. So they can role play with each other, they can role play with the teacher, but really hearing how this sounds and thinking through what this might sound like is so important, because telling them that a warning sign is expressing hopelessness isn't as effective as telling them, when you hear someone say, things will never get better for me, or something similar to that, it really just kind of drives the point home and helps them just make it more easily recognizable.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a chat question. Have your students explicitly been taught these warning signs? Do they know what to look for?
All right, I just put that in the chat for anybody who wants to talk about it, or if they have this kind of program or teachings in their school currently. Miranda says no. I mean, back when I was in school, we definitely didn't have anything like this, so it's something that we need to start talking about now, especially with those numbers and the way that they are. Another no. Okay.
Yeah, one of the pieces of our training that we completed with the ambassadors this summer, we did a Mythbusters kind of situation with suicidal ideation. And years ago, it was thought that if you brought up the question, are you thinking of taking your life, or however it's posed, that would plant the seed, the idea in the person's head that yes, now I want to go do this. And through research and many years of data collected, we understand that that's not the case. That when the band-aid, so to speak, is ripped off and the tough question is asked, that it often provides the person who is suffering with an immense sense of relief, that they now have someone that they can talk to and share their feelings with, and hopefully will help them and give them support.
So this is the program that we explicitly teach and use with our students. It's called STAY, and STAY stands for suicide is preventable, talk it out, ask the tough questions, and you stay with them and reach out for support. So STAY, this is a whole lesson within itself that we have, probably about an hour-long lesson that we teach to our ambassadors at our schools and at our summer camps and our leadership training. So it's intended to offer hope through positive action. It is not a form of counseling or treatment. It's just put an acronym in these students' heads to get them thinking about what to do if they find themselves in this situation.
When we did the training this summer, we actually had them take out their phones and take a picture of this screen, so that they would have it. And then we had a list of resources, phone numbers, 988, Safe UT, that they could take a picture of. So it would be right there on their phone if they found themselves in a situation where they needed, or they were having the conversation or needed to have the conversation with someone, or if they themselves needed help. So asking the tough questions, it's hard. There's no doubt about it. It's tough content. It's difficult conversation to have, but we want to save lives and we want our youth to be around to grow up, have a future. So we need to ask those tough questions. So again, like Kristen was talking on the other slide, giving these examples and role playing with students so that they can feel comfortable having these conversations, because it's definitely not easy. During summer camp this year, we were teaching this lesson and we didn't have the role play piece in. And one of the students spoke up and said, hey, I went through this training last year, and we did the role play. Could we do that again this year? And we were like, oh my gosh, absolutely. That must have been so powerful. So we're firm believers in the role play piece. So a scenario, just having two people up, we modeled it first. The person who was suffering, the person who was there to support, modeled it. And then we had students who volunteered to come up and role play for the group. And then they turned to basically the person that sat next to them and role played. And just being able to speak the words and have the conversations. The one student who shared with us that she really wanted us to do that said that she had been in a position 3 times since the camp the previous summer to where she had a conversation, had 3 separate conversations with people who presented suicidal ideation. And she made a significant impact in saving that person's life because then they were able to get help. So just keep in mind too that even though it's scary to have these conversations with people, and when kids are having it, might be some people are tempted to shame. They don't realize it's shaming. Something like the second one on the right, you're not suicidal, are you? Because that would be stupid. Well, as you can imagine, that's just going to shut them down. They're oh no, they're not going to want to talk about it. So we have to be careful about how we phrase those questions and exercise our empathy.
So our stay strategies are listen, talk it out, ask the tough questions, as Candy was just talking about, and then finding the right support. So that little tip that she gave about having your students just take a picture, and majority of them have phones in their pockets, having them take a picture of the 988, the Safe UT, whatever your state has or your country has or your area has, just having them have those resources readily available where they can access them quickly is just really important. So listening, we want to actively listen to the problem without judgment, talk it out. So they might believe that they can't be helped, and we want them to find that hope. So talk it out with them, ask the tough questions, and get them support immediately.
Absolutely. So how do we prevent it in the first place? And what we're finding is if we move into the space of helping students build grit, resiliency, and build and maintain and safeguard their self-esteem, um, we see now that that can help them bounce back from adverse events in their life. It can help them rise above bullying. It can help them move through abuse and see and have hope for a better future. So this grit and resiliency piece and how it couples with self-esteem, we're pretty excited to talk about from a preventative piece.
So resiliency is the ability to bounce back from your setbacks. Grit is the perseverance and the passion that you need in order to achieve your long-term goals. Both of these qualities are not innate traits. They can be developed. So we do have to explicitly teach this to our students. We have to teach them how to be resilient. We have to teach them how to have grit. And the most effective way really to do that is through modeling.
Yeah, that's true. So, how do grit and resilience build self esteem? So, when we look at these 4 buckets, you can see how collectively they can help a young person build their self esteem. So, when we do hard things um, and we either make progress in those hard things or we succeed in those hard things, it helps us to understand that we have the ability to move forward. We have the ability to make choices and have some positive control in our life. Um, One thing that educators can do in their classroom is maybe have a hard things bulletin board or have students write one hard thing that they want to tackle that day or that week in their agenda. No one gets to pick your hard thing for you. That's totally on the child or the student. The only rule is that they have to finish what they start, or at least and follow through. And that gives them that sense of accomplishment in themselves. Having a growth mindset. Angela Duckworth has done a lot of work and research around. No, I'm sorry, that's Carol DeWick has done growth mindset. A lot of research around it, and she talks about lots of athletes who have a growth mindset and a fixed mindset and how they did in their career. Just lots of research out there, but having that growth mindset to embrace challenges, not shy away from them, persist in the face of setbacks, learn from feedback. Feedback can be hard for some folks. It feels like an attack, but learning that it's coming from a place to help one grow, and then taking that feedback and seeing it come to fruition can also be a big cog in your self-esteem wheel. Um, and looking to others who have, let's say, succeeded or had success in an area that you're interested in, and learning from their failures or from things that they did well. um, and then students are always looking to the adults in their life, and like Kristen said earlier, like that modeling piece is so big that, adults in students' lives need to model realistically what it feels like to fail, but also what it is to get up and try again. And that grit piece is setting those goals. And you set the goals, you work towards the goals. Sometimes maybe they don't work out. You step back, you readjust your goals, and you keep moving forward. And when students see those incremental steps forward, it really does go a long way for their self esteem. Um, and then I love this, the long game, the effort. If we can reward effort, like we do in A, that would be awesome, because the effort to get somewhere is, it's just amazing. So if a kid is putting one foot in front of the other each day towards a goal, that in itself should be celebrated. Um, Anything else you want to add to that, Kristen?
We have a couple of good ways to develop grit and resiliency in your students, again, for teachers, admin, anyone who works with students or children. So I'm going to drop that in the chat right now.
Cool. I wonder if folks out there, are you guys hearing more and more about grit and resilience?
Andy, I would love to have more of a discussion, but we are really running out of time, so we'll just have to move along. Yeah,
We'll keep boogieing along.
yeah.
That sounds good.
This is our last piece on the power of words. So the power of words. Thank you, Candy.
My pleasure.
Words create our world. We really are trying to teach these kids that their words have power, an unbelievable amount of power. The most common request that we're getting from schools right now, and admin, that they're wanting us to bring into their schools is this type of conversation, because they're dealing with a lot of things like racism, discrimination, anti-LGBTQ problems in their school. So this is the most common thing that we're getting requests for, and we're wanting to teach them that their words have power, their actions have power, meaning like their nonverbal communication, their tone has power, so the way that they speak to someone. And this is something we were trying to be really mindful of as teachers as well. Our tone and sarcasm, Candy and I taught fourth grade, and we are just naturally sarcastic people, and sometimes kids might not get that. So just trying to be really aware of that, being mindful that you're not using your tone and your sarcasm at a student's expense, because that's going to model to them that it's okay to make fun of others, like as a joke, when it's not really a joke. So spoken, written, verbal, nonverbal words, they can spread positivity, and others can spread hate or prejudice. Words can have great power over our thoughts, actions, and emotions. So we just want to tread very carefully with that and teach our students to tread carefully with that.
Yeah. If you see really empowering students to make positive choices with their words, If they're in a situation where things are not going well, students can step in. This is where our ambassadors play such a strong role. They model this behavior, step in and say something positive, change the subject, reach out and make sure that person's okay after the incident. Obviously, reporting is a huge piece. And that good old scatter the crowd is usually helpful too, to diffuse those negative situations.
All right, I know we just have a couple of more minutes. If you do have any questions about what we've talked about so far, please drop them in the chat so we can get a head start on the Q&A. But I just want to talk quickly about the power of digital signage and how it can really support your school and these concepts that we're talking about. So, you know, we've talked about promoting kindness and helping create a positive school culture. One of the things that we hear from our customers in our schools all across the world is birthday announcements. Kids love to see themselves up on the TV. So if you're having either birthday announcements in the classroom or across the school, super popular and really helps create a positive school culture. Another display that you can put on your digital signage is anti-bullying campaign. So this is really important for, you know, spreading awareness about anti-bullying, different resources that students can access if, you know, if they're experiencing bullying, and just really starting that conversation. Candy, can you switch the slide? Can you switch the slide? Yeah, perfect. Another one is student spotlight. So kind student of the month. If you are sharing different student achievements, they don't all have to be athletic or academic. They can be, you know, students who are exuding kind behavior, maybe somebody who stopped bullying before it escalated. You know, those are kinds of things that you can really celebrate. And then we also, Rise Vision has, sorry. Rise Vision also has castle content and campaigns. So if that's something that your school has in place, we also have those resources available. I do have a video, but we're running out of time, so we're just going to skip it. If anybody wants to go back, they'll be able to watch the presentation and watch that video. It's just 3 minutes. But if we want to just skip ahead, and we'll just jump to if anybody has any Q&A. And while anybody's putting in their questions, Candy and Kristen, why don't you talk quickly about the Student Ambassador Program?
Make sure, there we go. So we have a really robust program that we take into schools to help schools either create an ambassador program for students from scratch, or if they have something in, we can bolster that program. We'll typically go in with an assembly, a really dynamic event, kickoff, really just bringing a positive note to the school. Go in with the ambassador program so that we can teach kids how to spread kindness, how to see and acknowledge kindness, see something, say something, set goals, and be a leader. Be a leader for themselves and a leader for others, and how to collaborate in a kind and respectful way, and learning the power of their words and how to wield those responsibly.
So our ambassador club comes kind of hand in hand with our curriculum. You can have a focus on kindness, anti-bullying, whatever you want your club to be, or like Candy said, we can integrate it into an existing program that you have. You can meet once a week with your club, once a month, whatever you want. It's totally adaptable. And I have a link of how to get in touch with Stand4Kind if any of this sounds cool to you and you're interested in integrating it into your school. I have a link of how to get in touch with us and request any of these programs, and I'll put that in the chat for you.
Awesome. Thanks. And like we mentioned, our ambassadors help with a school-wide assembly, and they come to summer camps. They go through masterclass series of training. They learn mindfulness. It's just a wonderful program to really empower young people in schools. And we have Kristen.
So we have a kindness challenge because that's what we're all about spreading. So here's just a fun little kindness challenge. Teachers or anyone who works with students, we challenge you to write a kind note to your teammates, any support staff at your school, someone on your grade level. We know you all work so hard. We appreciate you all so much for tuning in today. We obviously have a lot to say, and we appreciate you for listening. Admin, write some kind notes to your staff members by the end of the first quarter, by the end of this quarter, whatever it may be for you all.
I think it would be really fun. I'm going to take this this slide from the presentation. I'm going to put it on our Facebook. And if anybody who has been in this presentation wants to go on and write something kind to either your staff member or one of your teammates, something nice, and we'll do a little kindness challenge right after this webinar. So I am going to be sending out the recording of this and with the presentation deck. If you have any questions, since we've run out of time, please feel free to email me and I will get the answer for you. I will either send it over to Candy and Kristen to get an answer, or I will answer it myself. And we look forward to seeing you guys on social media. If you have any questions about Stand4Kind or Rise Vision, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Kristen, Candy, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been great. And I hope everybody, got something that they can take away and implement in their schools right now. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jennifer. Bye.